went to the county auditor's office. That became my home away from home. And the girls in there were just great because they were interested in what I was interested. And I went to plat maps. And the most important things were these big transfer books. Does anybody, do you know what those are? How many of you know what a transfer book is? Okay, well, I better explain. They're the huge books that are the history of the county. They start with whoever purchased the first acreages, if they if it was railroad land or how it came into being. And with each transaction for a plot of land, it's recorded in this book, and they're huge. And those were the ones that I went to find the schoolhouses of Clay County. Then I went to the county recorder's office and asked them for questions, and they helped. And then I went to get deeds, and then it was time to go to the computer. Well, I do have to confess, when I taught first grade, I thought computers were important, but I didn't think they were important for first graders when they would go to a lab for 3 days a week. So I put my computer in the closet. And then I retired, and then it was time for me to learn how to use a computer. And all the research and all the data I found. And so then I got started and put it on the computer. The museum was interested in it, and so the director, the one that Bill was talking about, notified Humanities Iowa, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and a Renaissance Initiative grant for the city of Spencer. And that's how this book was funded. I did the legwork, but they did the funding. And as a result, I have not received any proceeds from the book. It has all gone back to the museum. And we chose a spiral bound because I had hoped that people would use it for research. So that's why ours is spiral. There were 400 books printed in the first printing, and they were all sold out, and it's been printed again. It shows, what I did was take each township, and there were supposed to have been 9 schools in a township, and I interviewed teachers, I interviewed former students, I interviewed people that lived in the neighborhood, and each of the little stories is about one of the books, or about one of the schools, and I found 131 of them. It's been an ongoing thing. I've gotten so there are people in town that I talk to, and I know, I recognize them by the school they went to, and it's fun. This is our little school, and I live in Everly, or I live on a farm now out north of Everly, and this is our little school that was moved in, and there's such a pride in the schools, and I think anybody who's here who's working on these projects, it's great. Are there any questions? I do have, now you don't want me to go along with the signs right away, or do you?
Well, let's take questions about,
yeah, do you have any questions?
Publishing a county history,
You just have to like to do it.
Maybe one comment I could make, every county auditor in Iowa does have some kind of map, a historic map that shows the locations of country schools, and it can be for different years, but that is a resource that maybe you can use to kind of get started and see the location of country schools for a particular year in your county.
Yeah, see now this is a page out of a plat book, and I copied all of, well, every township, and then I marked them, and this was my map. I mean, this was what I went by for, well, 3-4 years. I still do. I think plat maps are exciting, and that was my direction. And they're, I think, I don't know, the oldest one was 1890 something. This is from 1908. And they still print them every year. And you know, I also said, I don't know if you know, a first grade teacher always drags stuff to school. I never went to school empty-handed, and I swore I'll never have a job that I have to drag stuff. Well, you can see what I did. I do want you to see this. In Clay, I guess in Clay County, I'm called the schoolhouse lady. And there was a gentleman that had an old transportation map, and he wanted to know if I would like to have it. And so it's a work in progress. And I have marked all of the schools that we have in Clay County. We had 2 consolidated schools, and I've got them marked. But I'll try to leave it out on the table so you can look at it, because I think it's kind of exciting. That's a whole picture of our schools in Clay County. Okay. Well, as Bill said, I think it was in Page County or Fremont County. There were a group of people that put signs up at the sites of all of the schools, and I thought, oh, I was done with the book, so now there's something else I can do. So there were some other interested individuals at the museum, and it was not a museum project, it was really our project. And this is what our signs look like. There are 131 of them. We have 2 more to go, but we had two consolidated schools in Clay County, and we don't have those up yet. But the first thing I did, I went to the county engineer. He happens to be an Everly boy and was interested in our project. And he went to the Board of Supervisors to ask if if they could dig the holes. Well, you can imagine what a job it was to dig the holes. And the county supervisors were as excited, I think, as the rest of us, and so they said yes. So then the next thing, well, we knew the locations because of my book. The next thing was the money. I wrote 131 letters to people that lived or had owned the site where the schools were. A committee had met before, and we decided we had to find out how much the signs cost, the hardware that went with them, the posts, how much that cost. I think I'm losing me, and the cost, and had that all in mind. And it seems to me that signs cost $25 at the time we did it. And so I wrote these letters and asked for donations. I got just about everybody that I wrote to paid a donation. Then also I have a slide presentation of about 80 slides, 90 slides of Clay County schools. And I went out and gave programs, and any proceeds that came from that went into the fund. So it was all, well, we didn't have to ask money from the museum or anybody else. It was kind of self-serving. Then we decided, what are we going to put on the signs? And so we decided, of course, the site of, well now, logistically, each school is in a township. And so we wanted the township, and then we wanted the number. Well, in my book, I have what I call poetic names for schools. I don't know where they came from, but it was what people knew the schools. For instance, I live on a farm, and a fourth of a mile south of me is Waterford number 1, but it's also the Goldenrod School. And people knew it by the Goldenrod School, but they knew it by the Myers School because there were so many Myers living around it. So, but I didn't want that on there. So we've got the site of and the official name, Meadow number 3, and it was called the Fairview Schools. And as I say, if anybody ever finds out where these names come from, I would really like to know. Well, we weren't exactly sure, but I used the deeds as to when they were built. And then when through visiting with people, then I found out when they were closed. Now this sign happens to have been in an accident. There was a car that came up and bent it. And strangely enough, I had gotten it in the wrong place. So we got it in the right place. But this, so those are our signs. I don't know if you have any questions. Well, and then I do have to tell you this. Of course, as you can probably tell, I get into projects. And we had a project of the signage for our cemeteries in Clay County. And so we got a grant and put up 31 signs for our cemeteries. Okay, any questions? I do have a handout, since I got up here in such a hurry, that if people that tell about.
Do you have enough to pass out to everybody?
Just about, I think.
Okay.
I'll put them on the tables.
Okay, she'll have a handout by the sign on the table, if any of you would like to get one.
Yeah, and then if you need help, don't be afraid to call or email me. Because I think it's a good project. It's our history. Yes.
Did you have problems with property owners because that'd be on private property?
No, that I should tell you. No, we didn't put them on private property. They're in the county right away.
Okay.
So they really didn't have a choice. I mean, we were going to put them up anyhow, but and the county supervisors agreed to that. Oh, another important thing is Iowa One Call. Any of you familiar with Iowa One Call? Okay, one. Okay. Well, it's a must. When we had designated the area or the site of the school, one of our committee took a lath with you know what a lath is, a lath with a ribbon on it and pounded it in the ground where the sign was supposed to be. And then he happened to work at the county engineer's office, but he contacted Iowa One Call, and they had to know where we were going to put these signs because electricity, rural water, all of those organizations you can't dig in Iowa without contacting Iowa One Call. So that was necessary. But now we did it by the telephone, and there were applications at the county engineer's office. But now you do it all on email. So somebody, yes.
Who made the sign?
Well, a gentleman in Spencer did. His name, he has Spencer Sign Company. I went to, I don't know, three different sign companies to get estimates. And then something that was kind of exciting, of course, there's always hardware that goes on the back. And our hardware was all donated. I had a first grader who, well, let's see, he lived out in Denver, and I don't know he was an engineer, and he saw there was an accident where some kids had taken the signs off, the hardware off of a stop sign, and there was an accident on the corner, and some children were killed, and he wanted to stop that. So he designed these special screws that have to have a special tool to take them off or put them on, and he donated, well, 131 times 2 for that project. You can use other hardware, but I thought that was kind of a heartwarming thing. So you have to have all of those estimates before you can decide. Okay, that help? Anybody else? Yes?
When you had a school that had moved over the years, did you mark
both locations?
No, usually just the one. The one that's in the book is the one that we designated. Yes.
I may have missed, but how many school signs did you mark? How many cemeteries?
I found 131 schools in Clay County, and we put up that many signs, but we do have 2 more because we had 2 consolidations, but we don't have those up yet.
And how many cemeteries?
Cemeteries. Oh golly, I think there were 25 cemeteries.
How do you do? I'm so glad to be here. I may be a bit dusty today because I have just come from Page County. And as you know, to get around through the countryside, it is much easier to ride a horse. So my horse is out here someplace grazing. I hope he's there when I return. So I am in Page County and am teaching there now. I've only been there a couple of years because my heart and my home is in Delaware County, which is in the northeast part of Iowa. And that's where I was born and raised. That's where I taught. I have now taught for about 20 years. And I'll do a little just basic description of myself. Some people, well, I am a wife. I am a farmer, always have been a farmer. Some people say I am pompous. Some people say I am pious. Some people say I am didactic. I'm a suffragette. I'm also a temperance leader. So you can take your pick as to what you think I might be, but mainly I am a teacher. And I am here today I will try not to take too much of your valuable time, but I am here today to let you know some of my viewpoints on teaching and also to help you be aware of the challenges of rural schools because a lot of people are not aware of the challenges that we have. Now, you have each received or are about to receive a card. And it has a poem on one side, but I would like for you to turn to the side that has the lines on it. And this is your lesson card. You may feel free to write down any facts that you may learn today from me. But first of all, I would like for you to take out your writing tool, whatever that may be. I want you to be aware of the date. In school, we always are aware of the date. Today is October 7th, 1911. And so please write down the date on your lesson card. And then I would like for you to write this simple sentence. I will do my level best. I will do my level best. This simple sentence is something that I ask all of my students to write at the top of every single lesson. I think that's the only thing that we can expect our students to do is their level best. But we as teachers must do our level best. Our parents must do their level best. All right, so before I begin to tell you about teaching, I have to, let's see how smart you are today, all right? Who is our president? 1911, who is our president? You must raise your hand, of course. Anyone know who our president is? Oh, we need to go back and study some history here. It's Taft, okay? It is Taft. There are rumblings that some people are not satisfied with President Taft. He's been in office now for a couple of years, and some people are wondering whether he will be reelected. But we can attribute Taft to a tremendous project that he took on before he became president, and that's the Panama Canal. As we all know, it's under construction. It'll be completed maybe in about 3 years. They're hoping by 1914 it will be completed. So we can thank President Taft for that. All right, let me ask you this. How many states are there in our United States? Oh. How many states are there? Would anyone like to volunteer? Don't be afraid to try. If it's wrong, that's okay. You'll find out the right answer.
46.
Oh, 46. We have some very intelligent people here. All right. There are 2 states that we think will be coming into our union as of next year, 1912. Does anyone by any chance know what those 2 states may be? Arizona and in Mexico. Oh, now you're a very intelligent group for sure. Arizona and Mexico. We think that next year that they will be coming into the Union, and then we will be complete. We will have 48 states, and we will be complete. All right, I know that you are in this wonderful state of Iowa, which I have a deep love for also. When did we become a state? Oh, all right, you're very well versed then on Iowa history, correct? All right, so if you care to keep those facts, but remember, all during your life, not only when you're in school here, you are expected to do your level best. And now I would like to relate to you, I have kept a lot of journals, and I know of other rural school teachers who have kept journals, and I call my journals my confidant, because on days that can be very lonely and isolated, I have found that by writing whatever has happened in my classroom or whatever my thoughts are has helped me a lot. I have been fortunate enough to write some articles for periodicals, and one of them just this past year was called The Midland Schools, and I'll read you just portions of what I wrote, which summarize this challenge that we have in teaching. And I put, the rural teacher is handicapped in all too many instances by meager salary and by unsanitary and poorly equipped grounds. Why the rural teacher should be compelled to get up socials. You know, we have to organize those socials to raise money for school benefits is past explaining. Her contract calls for all needful apparatus and supplies. But you see, we many times are responsible for getting those. Perhaps it is partly the teacher's fault, as well as the director's. She does not ask or becomes fearful if once refused, and then he does not volunteer. And later on I talked about teaching. The teacher who does not give daily instructions in reading and writing is in the very best manner and methods possible is a stumbling block to the pupil's progress and advancement in all other branches. And then I do have to make some observations about the administration. Let us urge directors and township boards to live up to their side of the contract, and let us not neglect our own side of the same document. So we do. We have various challenges. That was just submitted last year into the Midland schools. I have another item that I have saved, and this happens to be from a county superintendent in Pleasantville, Iowa. This was just a few years back, about 6 years back. This superintendent, now you know that the superintendents also ride around on their horses to visit schools. This can be a challenge. In some counties, I know of one in particular that has 103 schools. So you see, the county superintendent cannot make his way to the countryside on horseback to visit these schools frequently. Well, this is a brief account of a school he visited, and you will find out he was not in great favor of the teacher in the school. In the second room I found a regular old-style driver, a fighter, a stormer, a woman badly out of her sphere. She used a rotund voice, and that freely. She requires her pupils to use it also. She has good behavior on the part of the pupils, secured in terrorizing them. While present, I heard her give sharp, budding reproofs. Perhaps a fourth of her talk was on that line. I saw her shake one innocent-looking little girl for laying her left hand on the desk by her while standing in class, and heard the teacher promise several times to stay with the students until sundown, or a little after if necessary, in case certain tasks were not performed. Her frowns were terrible. I saw one of them, but it wasn't leveled at me. The board had better pay her her salary to stay away from the building and hire another teacher. I later heard she had a rube of a husband and was hired doubtless through sympathy. But ability as a teacher, it seems to me, is true ground for selection. So that was Mr. Samuel Townsley, the superintendent of county schools in Pleasantville, Iowa. And it is not uncommon for us to see things like that. Now, very briefly, I have a few theories, and I have brought a meager little item to display here, and it's this triangle. And to me, this represents the student, the teacher, the parents, or the student, the teacher, the parents, whichever way you want to turn the triangle. I have a theory that in schools, it needs to be we, it needs to be us. It doesn't just need to be all the teacher, all the student, all what the parents want, that everyone needs to work together. And I've incorporated that into the schools I've been in. I even have my students work together on various projects. I may assign a 16-year-old to clean the boards with someone who is only 5 years old. And they do that in lots of their tasks and in their work so that the students learn to work together. I also advocate trying to get the students out of that textbook. Yes, we use the textbooks, but we need to find other resources to use to enlighten the learning. Certain periodicals, this one has been around a long time, or has been passed around at least, and it's called Little Folks. And it has all sorts of different little stories and articles and exercises, and some of them are seasonal. So we try to make learning as interesting as possible. One of my favorite ventures is to have them collect things. Whatever they may be reading about in their books or studying, this happens to be just a few little samples of some leaves the student collected. We collect leaves, we collect shells, we collect stones, we collect anything, and we may write about them. We may find out some scientific information about them. One of my favorite exercises that had to do with leaves was in my previous school. We had students' work displayed all over the classroom. I am a big advocate of just hanging their work and displaying it and giving little rewards and making them feel that their work is a valuable asset to the inside of the school. But I am sorry to say that many of the school grounds are in deplorable condition. We know that they've usually been built on a piece of property that is not very fertile, wasn't good for farming. One of the schools I was familiar with in another part of the state had a name, and that had a number. You know, township schools had numbers, but its name was Mudsock. And obviously, it was in a very low land. All that wonderful moisture from Iowa drifted into this low land where the school was built, and even though they put boards for the students to enter, their socks always got muddy and their shoes got muddy. So they named it Mudsock. My favorite one, which I think you can associate with. Now, this was only a one-room school, you know, level up through 8th level, but they named it Cornfield College, which I thought gave it some status. But getting back to my school, I decided that the ground should be a learning center and also attractive, so I sent the children out into the brush, and we brought back bushes, and we brought back flowers, and we brought back trees, saplings of trees. And we planted them. We researched as to what kind of tree that may have been. We also named them. One was Albert Einstein, one was Abraham Lincoln, one was Harriet Beecher Stowe, one was Whittier, and we gave them all names. And then as we watched them grow and we researched what kind of tree they were, we researched their namesake too. So again, I encourage all of this that children can do and learn and get outside that textbook. This is another little periodical that I have brought with me that's called the Little People Library that has some interesting little stories in it. But I would like to share a little story of my own. Last year, my county superintendent came to me and said, "All right, Miss Sarah, we recognize all these wonderful things you're doing with the students. We would like for you to submit some of your samples of your books and your charts and collections and whatever you think you could pack up." And he said, "I'm going to take it to the State Teachers Convention in Des Moines next week. Could you please meet me at the train station at the time of the train departure from Manchester into Des Moines, and I'd like to take these and show these to the teachers." So I thought, okay, I'll be more than happy to do that. Now, you see, there wasn't any invitation for me to attend. I'm a rural school teacher. So I packed up my parcels that had the samples of my student work, and I met the superintendent at the train station in Manchester, and he got on a front car of the train, and I got on a back car of the train. He proceeded to take those items, put them on display, and when I got to the building, and inside the building where the meeting was being held, there were labels on various doors of specialized presentations on geography and spelling and grammar and so on. I saw nothing that would have been a good resource presentation for rural school teachers. So I went to the president after this meeting. I did attend some of the sessions myself, and I suggested, what about next year that perhaps we have some sort of resource room where rural school teachers can get together and share ideas and discuss our trials and tribulations possibly. And he said, oh, that would be fine. You be sure and do that. So he said, you communicate with the teachers and we'll see what happens. Well, I think he thought I was going to communicate with the 66 teachers from the schools in Delaware County. I proceeded to send out 10,000 letters to teachers to encourage them to come. And I would like for you to read to you what I sent. This was last year, September 8th, 1910. Dear fellow teacher, the rural teachers, the one-room, far-away country schools who wade through mud, teachers who wade through mud and slush, build their own fires, get up box socials to secure apparatus that their contracts say the board should provide, teach or hire 30 classes and 8 grades, these country self-sacrificers are organized for the first time in the history of Iowa into assembly that meets in Des Moines November 3rd through 5th, 1910. As you and I are part of this great body of 10,000, upon whom rests the responsibility of the meeting and of much of the betterment of the conditions of our schools in equipment, tutelage, salary, etc. May I urge your attendance, your interest, your helpfulness. Let us be boosters and progress ourselves. Let us marshal up forces for the improvement of our rural schools that they may better meet present day conditions and demands. I sent that to 10,000 people. At the convention last year in Des Moines, they set up a room. They gave us one room, rural school teachers. It was so crowded there were not enough chairs to seat everyone. And it was decided that there should be a special division of the Iowa Teachers Association for rural school teachers. And I have been elected president. All right. Now, with that, I hope you understand that we do have challenges. We must marshal ourselves, and we must see to it that people recognize the education that we are giving, but at the same time, we ourselves need to be responsible to be good teachers. I am going to close with 3 little diary entries from a peer teacher of mine in Nebraska. She started her first little journal entry on September 18th, one of the first days of school, and she submitted 2 following entries. So I'm going to read these to you. Isn't it funny how everything goes wrong some days? This has been one of those days. I am quite discouraged. I tried to win the children by being good to them. That worked so well last year, but it won't this year. Not at all. Now, I am going to keep right on being friendly to the children, but they have to obey me. After all, I am the boss, and they have to recognize that. Today wasn't the day to start my new program. But I have a problem to solve, and I know with 45 naughty children that all do the same thing at the same time, it is rather hard to know just what to do. But I must find a way. So long until I find it. Now that was September 18th. Here was her entry of September 19th. I found it. I've just asserted my authority with all the will today, and I really was amazed with the results. We got along fine, and I was as jolly as anyone could wish at recess, joining in the usual running, games, and so on. Then, during the noon hour, we washed the windows and did some other things, and some of the big boys hung around and used their strength in the more difficult jobs, showing superiority. And her next entry was September 20th. I'm glad I'm a school mom. It's fun. It's fun to teach school. Just fun, really. No 2 days are alike. Signed, Bessie Tucker of Nebraska. So I hope that you have received my point that we have a challenge and we must continue to do well. Thank you very much. Note to this in that I did have two items here that I found in antique stores. One I really liked, which I have a feeling Sarah's children would have made. This is just a piece of thin board, and it's one student's report on insects. It has an index, and it has pictures, and it has some little research that the student did. I just want to follow up by saying I had the pleasure of visiting Manchester day before yesterday, I've lost track of time, and visited a lady who has helped restore one of the schools that Sarah taught in. It's one of the few brick schools in Iowa, and she was very proud of it. She drove me past Sarah's farm that I had read so much about. She even drove me to the cemetery where she is buried. Sarah, as a side note, had a very hard life. She did serious farm work. She had a father that was not kind at all. She dearly loved her mother. She had a brother that was difficult to deal with. She married later in life. She married a man 40 years older than she, so she had to be a caregiver for him. And she worked so hard, and yet after she left Page County, she was county superintendent here for a short period of time after she taught. She didn't teach in a one-room school anymore. She went back to Manchester, but she taught at Northern Iowa, and she taught teachers, which to me would have been a real gift to teachers. The last thing I want to show you is that I visited with this lovely lady, Sharon Cook, who hopefully we can get to come to our conferences. She's a teacher herself, and very proud of this school. They had like a 10-foot hole in their brick wall of this school, and they were able to find brick to match. There's not a lot been done inside. It's in good shape, but they don't have it pointed yet. And she had some items that she showed me, and she said, I want you to take one of these, which I insisted not, but she insisted yes. And you can't see it, but I'll leave it for you to look at. It does have a picture of the school before it was totally refinished, and a picture of Sarah. Sarah lived to be 90 years old, by the way. And she taught in one form or another until she was 70. And this is my summation. This is the McGee Brick School. The McGee Brick School, built in 1868, is located in Coffin's Grove, I love that name, don't you, Township, Delaware County, and is one of the only, they say, only 3 standing one-brick schools still standing in the state of Iowa. It was the first teaching assignment of nationally recognized rural educator Sarah Gillespie Huftelin, who taught there. She went from this school to teach 2 other schools in the area and is responsible for the creation of the Rural Department of Iowa State Teachers Association in 1910, a concept that became a national standard for rural education. She also was very instrumental in getting the 4-H program started. She submitted these students' work out to the World's Fair in Seattle. They won forestry awards. She was a dynamic teacher. I wish she was here today.
Well, I'm Elaine Hagan. I'm a member of the Locust School Committee, along with Paul Hexam and Levon Birgham, who are with me today. The Locust School was in continuous use for 108 years and is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's about 10 miles north of Decorah, Iowa. Well, for the past 11 years, we've held a country school reunion at Locust, which has been followed by a pie auction and lunch at the church next door. usually the first Sunday in October, and it has been a very successful event. Every year we present a program. The last few years we've done a pageant, and this year's pageant was entitled If Walls Could Talk. What would the walls of the school say for the years as school was being taught? It was built in 1854, and so I started with that up to the present, little tidbits of what happened in the world and what was happening during the country school years. There were about 20 scenes, and we had about 12 people ranging in age from 7 to 85 who are my actors, participants, as country school kids. And I couldn't do these pageants without the help of these people. The narrator would give highlights of the happenings in the school through the years. And some of the things we did, we sang school days. This is my father's world, and we used our Victrola. Another actor and myself sang the Little Red Schoolhouse. We had an 8th grade graduation, and a lot of it too was improv. You had to kind of say things as you went. And with 8th grade graduation, the fellow that was making up the certificates forgot to include Paul, so he just did a little improv and said, well, I didn't pass? Well, I guess I'll have to go again next year. So we had a baptism, and Paul was the pastor. In 1856, there was a baby girl that was baptized at the school before the church was built. We did a section on McGuffey readers, Dick and Jane. One of our participants portrayed the county superintendent that was of schools in the late 1940s. So all in all, I think we had a really enjoyable day, and we didn't have any rehearsals, but I thought it went off really well. And as I said, I couldn't do that without the help of all these people. One of the things, I'll read a poem that I wrote, and I read that as one of the things that day at the pageant. I stopped at my old school today and stood on the grounds. In the quietness, I listened for a school bus, an old familiar sound, now not to be found. I fondly remembered my old school days when in the schoolyard we frolicked and played. It seems like just yesterday, my old country school bus came this way to drop off all the children on bright September days. That was many years ago, or so it seems to me to be so. But now, much to my dismay, it's been many years since that yellow bus came this way. Now it's quiet in the morn of each fall day, and my old schoolhouse, try as it may, still hopes the children will walk through the door, but sadly, the school bus doesn't stop here anymore. All the children have left the old school. Progress stepped in and made some new rules. The children ride buses to school in town. Now no laughing school kids with noisy chatter utter a sound. The old school stands now, alone and forlorn. No yellow school bus is seen on sunny fall morns. Tearfully, when they close the schoolhouse doors, I know the school bus would not stop here anymore. Thank you.